Hey there, and welcome. We've got a really wild story for you today. We're going to connect Adam Smith, the father of capitalism, with Islamic economics. And I bet it's in a way you have never seen before. It's a connection that might just change how you see everything.
So let's kick things off with a big what if. What if our entire understanding of capitalism is based on, well, a misreading of its own founding father? What if we only got half the story? That's what we're digging into.
All right, before we go any further, let's make sure we're all on the same page. So, what is an economic system? Think of it like a country's operating system. It's the whole network of rules for how we produce things, how we distribute them, and how we consume them. It's the playbook for how we all play the game, from individuals to big corporations to the government. Okay, so these systems aren't just black and white. They exist on a spectrum, right? On one extreme, you've got a pure market economy. That's where individuals and private companies are in the driver's seat. On the other extreme, a command economy, where a central authority, like the government, makes all the big decisions. The thing is, in the real world, nobody's at the absolute ends of this spectrum. Every country is some kind of mix, including the one that's pretty much dominant across the globe today.
All right, first up, the reign of the market. If we want to get a handle on the system we have now, we've got to go back to the beginning, to the architect himself, Adam Smith. In 1776, he drops this book that literally changes the course of history. You've probably heard of it, The Wealth of Nations.
And at the heart of that book was this one hugely powerful idea, the invisible hand. Smith's big insight was this: if you and I and everyone else just pursue our own self-interest, some magical, invisible force will actually guide the whole economy to the best possible result for everybody. It's like order out of chaos, without anyone needing to be in charge.
And that idea, that's the seed for what we call laissez-faire capitalism. It's French. It literally means let it be. The whole philosophy is super simple. Just leave the markets alone. Get the government out of the way, and prosperity will follow. And man, did this idea take off. It became the engine for the Industrial Revolution and pretty much built the world we live in today.
But okay, that brings us to a really tough question, right? If this system is so great, why does it seem to be under so much fire these days? I mean, you look at things like the 2008 crash or just the huge economic anxieties people feel today, and you have to wonder, is it actually working as promised? It feels like the cracks are getting harder and harder to ignore.
Okay, so let's talk about those cracks. In our second section, we're looking at 5 big ones. These are the major problems that critics are pointing to in our current economic system.
So what are they? Well, the source material breaks it down into 5 main areas. First, you've got this massive, growing gap between the rich and everyone else. Second, the system seems to have these recurring, really disruptive financial crises baked into it. Third, there's this obsession with growth that often seems to forget about, actual human well-being. Fourth, the whole thing is built on this idea that we're all rational actors, which, let's be honest, is a bit of a stretch. And finally, there's the huge elephant in the room: environmental degradation.
Let's zoom in on that first one, inequality, because this is just wow. Look at this number. Back in 1960, the average CEO in the US was making about 42 times what an average factory worker made. Okay, fast forward to the year 2000. That number wasn't 50, it wasn't 100, it was 531 times. That's not just a change, that's an explosion.
And you can see this trend in the bigger picture too. This chart uses something called the Gini coefficient. It's just a way to measure inequality. 0 means everyone has the same, 100 means one person has everything. And yep, as you can see, the US has a much bigger gap than other places like the UK, or, especially a country like Sweden.
But here's where it gets even crazier. We're not just talking about income, which you earn in a paycheck. We're talking about wealth, stocks, property, everything you own. Look at this. By 2010 in the US, the top 1%, just 1% of the people owned more than a third of the entire country's wealth. That means the other 99% of us were left to share the rest. That's a pretty wild distribution.
So it's not just about the wealth gap, as big as that is. The other criticisms are just as serious. You have these boom and bust cycles, these massive financial crises that seem to happen over and over again, and then there's this laser focus on one number, GDP, gross domestic product, as if that's the only thing that matters, even if people aren't actually happier or healthier.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the alternative? Well, that brings us to our third section, an economics of justice. We're going to look at a totally different way of thinking about all this, one that starts from a completely different foundation, the Islamic economic paradigm.
Now here's what's so interesting. This system is still market-based. It's not anti-market at all. It recognizes that markets are really good at allocating resources. But, and this is the key difference, it's not hands-off. The market here has to operate inside a moral framework. It's guided by rules, and its main goal isn't just growth, it's social justice. And even private property is seen differently. It's not just yours to do whatever you want with, it's a sacred trust, something you're holding for future generations too.
This table really lays it all out, doesn't it? The difference in philosophy is just crystal clear. One system's primary goal is GDP. The other's is justice and human well-being. One is built on this mysterious invisible hand. The other is built on a clear set of divine rules. We're talking about two fundamentally different ways of seeing the world.
And this is where our story takes a huge twist. Section 4, Adam Smith's Secret Book. Just when you think these two systems are polar opposites, we find a clue. A secret, really, that brings us right back to the man himself, Adam Smith.
So get this. It turns out The Wealth of Nations, the book that defined capitalism, wasn't his first book. And some people would argue it wasn't even his most important one. 17 years before that, he wrote another book called The Theory of Moral Sentiments. And what's inside? Well, it changes everything.
I mean, just listen to this quote from that book. This is Adam Smith, Mr. Capitalism, writing that the commands and laws of the deity are the bedrock of morality. He's talking about a higher power that rewards the good and punishes the bad. Does that sound like the guy who supposedly said greed is good? Not at all.
It's like there are two different Adam Smiths. You've got the famous one, the invisible hand Smith that everyone quotes, but then you have this other guy, the moral sentiment Smith, who we've kind of forgotten. And that Smith believed that things like sympathy for others, having strong moral rules, and even guidance from a deity were absolutely essential for society to work.
And this is where it all clicks into place. When you look at Adam Smith's whole philosophy, not just the cherry-picked parts, you see this absolutely mind-blowing overlap with the Islamic economic system. Both of them, the real Adam Smith and Islamic economics, are saying the same thing, that markets need rules, that morality and justice are critical, that there should be a foundation based on principles from a higher authority, and that our well-being is about way more than just money.
So that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. What if the solution to our biggest economic problems isn't about finding some brand new ideology? What if it's about going back and rediscovering the moral foundations that we seem to have forgotten? The same foundations that the father of capitalism himself knew were crucial from the very beginning. Makes you think, doesn't it?